pretty much cut this whole thing off, and now I got this nice clean cut piece of sheet metal that I can just weld back in once I'm done doing whatever with the subframe rail. So I'll hold on to this, and I'm just gonna take a look. See all these bumps? This is all just jack stand and lift damage. This is where that subframe connector was mounted to. Basically, I've cut out from here, somewhere around here, all the way to the front. I'm gonna have to cut a little bit into the firewall to get to the very end there, but hopefully you guys will see a major difference once I'm done. Hopefully I see a major difference once I'm done. So in order to do this, I'm going to have to go out and get some steel tube, but since I currently don't have any here with me, I'm going to just try and shape out this channel with some 2x4. It's not the most ideal since I'm going to need something a lot more rigid, but for now I'm just going to work with what I have. I'll definitely need to go out and get some steel tube to get the result that I'm kind of looking for. So I'm just going to quickly explain what I'm going to be doing here. Basically, I'm going to take a 2x4 piece of wood, I'm going to stick it in this channel, I'm going to go over all the high spots in the channel, which is pretty much all over, and I'm just going to knock them down with my hammer, just see how that goes. Right now I'm not too worried about making it uniform or anything. All I want to do is just knock down all the high spots and hard edges, and then I'll worry about all the finesse stuff after. This is after I've kind of hammered a little bit of it out. This is just mainly bashing a 2x4 in there. When the frame rail starts caving in, the edge or the side of it also starts to crumple, and that's why it's so wavy here. You can see it's a lot more flat, a lot more pushed out. And look at the front for reference, right? Like that's what it was before, and this is what it's kind of starting to take shape. So just got to keep going, be patient with it, and I'm sure eventually I'll get it to a point where I'm satisfied with it. And just for reference, I'll show you the passenger. So you can see they're pretty awful. They're pretty crushed in, and that's exactly what the driver's side looked like. I mean, they're both brutal, so a little more work to go, but it's definitely taking shape. Alright, so basically I made it down to my local metal supply and picked up some square tubing. If you remember, I was just using wood, putting it in the channel, kind of hammering it down, whatever, and it definitely helped. Definitely, shaped the metal a little bit, but it's still not working out the way I kind of want it to. So something like this, more heavy duty, heavier, I think it'll get the metal to conform a little bit better than the wood, just because the wood, also absorbs the impact of the hammer. And then I found this. It's almost a perfect fit. And I know there's a gap here, but inside there's a little like raised portion, so it wouldn't have fit through anyway unless I ground that off. So this is actually like a perfect piece. And I have some smaller pieces to kind of do more concentrated areas. And I also picked up this solid chunk of steel. This is really heavy. It's about 2 inches as well. It fits right into the channel there. I think that'll be really useful to bring out the edges, like the sharpness in the edges back once I start hammering away. So this, 2x2 steel tube basically fits perfectly in the channel. I had to lift up a little bit of the floor on this side because it was a little offset. As you can see there, it's pretty snug up against the edge. Not a lot of wiggle room. This bigger piece here that I have basically fits right up to the point where the frame rail has this little raised piece of metal. So my plan of attack this time is going to be to hammer this in. As you can see, it's actually raised quite a bit towards the back here, and that's because the channel, instead of being a full, a uniform 2 inches, it's squished and expanded in certain areas. What I'm hoping to do right now is to basically clamp the side, just go down inch by inch with the tube steel in the channel from above, and hopefully the pressure is enough to shape the channel back to like a uniform 2 inches across. That's the goal, just to get rid of this stuff. I'll worry about the bottom and making it flat later on once I know the sides are more acceptable. I had some spare like 1/8 metal, so just cut like 2 little tabs, and I'm gonna put them in between here and here, latch it onto the frame rail. That way it'll like distribute the pressure a little more evenly. This is fucking garbage. Just fuck you. By the time this fucking works, I'll be 1,000 years old. So yet another quick update. You can see it's taken shape pretty nicely. Still a lot left to do, but I've been just kind of, as you can tell, I've been kind of working on this edge here, trying to get it nice and flat. Basically up to this point, I'm pretty happy with the sides of the frame rail. It's just the bottom and the bottom like edge that I want to kind of shape out still. But yeah, it's coming along. Been using different methods, obviously, just kind of hammering it, using the vice grips. They've got their different, I guess, uses and benefits. This is the steel tube that I had in here before, and I used this to shape out the channel from the bottom. The only thing is when you're hammering at it from the bottom, and it's not really secured into place, so it's going to move. It's not going to be as effective as if it was secured. So what I ended up doing is basically taking the tube steel, matching it up with the factory holes here. I didn't drill these holes out, they were already there. So I basically lined them up, drilled through the bar. I'm just gonna seat that in there. I'm gonna line up the holes and then bolt them into place from the bottom, and then I'm just gonna use some heat, hammer, mallet, whatever. You see how the edge goes right up against the edge of the frame rail there? So the idea is keep this secured into place, heat up the metal around like the sides and the bottom, and just kind of massage the metal to take this shape on the bottom. So in order to work on the top part of the frame rail as I showed you, I'm going to have to continue cutting this channel out at the top here. The channel is about 2 inches wide, but right at the front it goes a little wider to about 2 1/4. I figure I need about a 2 1/4 inch steel tube to slot in here to kind of do the same thing, kind of replicate the same thing I did here. So what I ended up doing was taking a piece of the steel tube that I already had, which is a 2x2, and I basically cut it and widened it to 2 1/4. And I welded a plate on the top, welded a plate on the inside. Obviously it's not the prettiest job, but it doesn't need to be, so now all I have to do is I basically slot this in the upper half of the channel and it fits nice and snug. So what this does is it gives me a perfect reference for the edges of the frame rail that's a little wider than this part here.